Hello and welcome to Parabuild Builds. Let's see. So I'm experimenting today with a new editing style. This one's a little bit different than my previous videos, but I'm learning a lot, so much in fact. So I hope my content will continue to improve and anyone out there watching enjoys it. Anyway, here I am gonna do a little tiny house. I love this game and I love building in it, but I'm having kind of a weird early access bug where it won't let me buy a different lot. If I attempt to buy a different lot, it will just freeze the game in a loading screen. So I have reported that and hopefully that will get fixed. Otherwise, I'll just make a new file for the purposes of building. It's not a big deal, I suppose, for now. Here I was trying to figure out if the grid was something I could set to like a permanent position to make building easier, but I wasn't able to figure that out. So I was just like, okay, let's build like a small tiny house on this lot in between the two. I recall I didn't really end up doing that much in the way of landscaping because it turns out when you place the houses down, the terrain doesn't get placed as well. The plants will and things, but it doesn't seem like the terrain also gets painted onto the surface, as well as the terrain elevation. That also doesn't get overwritten by the house that you want to place on it. So I'm not sure if that's something that they're going to fix, or early access, there's a lot of things that are going to be changing, I'm sure. But so here I was just figuring out what the bathroom layout was going to be. It's going to be a pretty simple one this time. I didn't want to build another row house just yet, but I wanted to like experiment with like tiny house type building. Just a lot of figuring out the roofs and the walls. Learning the new build tools still. It's all still pretty new. I am playing this game in between the builds, but that's mostly live mode and obviously reporting all the bugs, but it's the last patch was a pretty big deal, and like every patch they've done so far has been like noticeable improvements, even when a lot of the bugs that they fixed were not ones that I personally was experiencing. I was experiencing a lot because, I mean, it's early access. I think everyone's experiencing quite a bit. And here's where I was setting up the stair situation. I think I ended up having to move them quite a bit later because for some reason I accidentally removed them. Or they were removed when I placed something. I think I also ended up moving them to the other side in the end. We'll see. Anyway, so this was a lot of like trying to make it look like these this pair of folk bought an empty lot between two row houses, and instead of building a row house, just decided to build a little regular house. I still didn't really put any windows on the sides because they're just facing walls, and I know when you build a house between two buildings like this, sometimes you will anyway, just for airflow, even if you don't really use them for anything else. Here I was figuring out what angles I wanted the roof and everything, and like a little bit of overhang on either side, so it looks like there's a little bit of eaves. But the roofs don't snap to the walls very well yet. Oh, and here's that door that I was talking about in the first build from the building next door. I hadn't found it previously. It may have always been there, though. I thought I looked through them quite thoroughly and didn't see anything, but totally possible I missed it. Still, lovely door. Little too big for this one. My little step-in situation that I've been doing on every build, just a little stair to make sure everything works, because I'm not sure what the limits are if you do like a foundation level for what the para will still be able to step up to. I know it's probably not that high, but here I put a little brick on the bottom to make the foundation look especially like slight raise in the foundation for that uneven ground. I think I went with probably white siding in the end. Just a little white and red tiny house. Right now it's all about learning the tools available. I'm sure my builds will get a little bit more complicated with time and practice. In The Sims, I also liked to just build ginormous houses and then live in them. I say ginormous, but many of them were tiny houses, in fact. A few of them were big. I did build this one courthouse type house, like a say like a California, not quite Spanish courtyard house, but it has some similar elements to that. I might try to rebuild it in this, but I right now the game is not allowing me to buy other lots on top of this one, and apparently selling this one doesn't actually fix the problem. It's just fine. I'll just start another file if it doesn't get sorted soon. I think I ended up not picking the ones with the shutters just because they were kind of too wide to do most things with. I suppose I could have kept the ones upstairs. That whole area is basically just a lofted area. Probably should have made the roof lower too. That would have been the ceiling lower, I mean. That would have been interesting. Most of the windows I found were just honestly too big for this really, really small build. But I hope you're enjoying the content so far. So in this one, I think I edited it to be double speed, so this is actually faster than my normal. I can check. Give me 1 second. It was, in fact, 175, so not double speed, but the snapping in this build, both with and without assistance, so the with snapping and without snapping, does make from my experience, the building a little bit slower. That's probably just a lack of experience with this, though. This build mode does give you a lot more options as far as like placement of walls, angles of walls. The curve tool I haven't experimented that strongly with yet, but the curved wall tool is amazing, and I don't know how I would build it. Like, I kind of want to do, ooh, I had a thought. I could maybe do like a tower situation. Oh, the one thing is there aren't curved staircases. That would make things easier with a curved building. If you just wanted to do a tower, ooh, I could actually build a lighthouse. Anyway, sorry, thoughts go burr, you know. You just watching over the current project and finishing the voiceover work for it, and I'm just thinking about all the future things that I can build, because of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? Anyway, this is me attempting to put this. I think I decided in the end, yeah, I think I decided this side would be the rain collection side for some reason. I think it's mostly because it's uphill, so there's no way that the water would in fact go not under the foundation, which is what the gutters are for usually, to direct water from the roof away from the foundation. So putting a little details on the outside. Not sure. Anyway, the thought process for this build was just really like college student tiny house, like young person. But yeah, the comparisons are pretty fair, I feel, with The Sims having, like, The Sims has been around for a long time. If you go all the way back to The Sims 1, so long. And it's really been the only game of its type. Like, they, and this is, I suppose, fair to say, they kind of built the life sim genre. Like, there are other simulation games, but most of those are not life sims, you know? You know, you get me. Anyway, this one I have been so impressed with, because Paralives has, like, in a lot of ways they're doing it right, I guess. They're fixing their bugs. They're hearing the community suggestions, but they're also, like, they have a vision enough to be like, this doesn't fit into our vision. This doesn't fit into what we want to make. I do think it's kind of interesting that most of the furniture in this game can all just be stretched. It's like, it's not everything. Some things can just be scaled up and down, and some things can be stretched. But I really am enjoying it's so nice to just be able to, like, not have a catalog of like 5 million things, because like most of them are just, oh, the same thing but it's a chair, or the same thing but it's a couch, or the same thing but it's a love seat. So I'm enjoying that as far as like content wise. I think that corner one ended up being too big in the kitchen, the corner counter. So I think I just kind of stretched them over and made the corner cover myself. Yeah, that's what I did. In any case. So it's gonna have like a really tiny kitchen, pretty small bathroom in the end. The whole upstairs is like a lofted bedroom / office in the end. I believe I used like some rugs to like sort of designate the spaces to make them look a little bit less bare, because it's so small that I didn't want to clutter too much. And I ended up changing some things. I put a bunch of cabinets along the whole top wall here, but because I moved the stairs to the other side, I ended up having to remove a few, but I think it's still, like, they're not functional in the game. They don't really do anything, but if you really lived here, like, with a kitchen this small, every bit of storage counts. I know because I have a kitchen this small. And you just, you figure out solutions, because the storage is pretty necessary, especially in the kitchen. Pots and pans and plates and miscellaneous things. I'm thinking of maybe getting rid of my waffle maker, for example, because it takes up so much space. But I really do like waffles. Waffles are delicious. Anyway, that's just a thought. I'm gonna be honest, I'm finding the voiceover to be a little bit more challenging for me. Like, I know with the previous videos, I recorded the audio as I was going, and that was a little bit likely on the dull side, because when I got really focused on the building part, I would forget to think out loud, which is basically what I was doing. But this is, I'm just sort of, so for the purposes of doing the voiceover, I'm watching the recording so that I can essentially line up the events and my descriptions of them, which is, I suppose, how you do it. If anybody has any better tips, that would be great. Again, I'm new to this, so I am down for tips. If you're nice about it. If you're rude about it, I might just not. But anyway, so for the purposes of voicing over, it's just a ramble of my thought processes and my memories, and let's see, my just, I suppose, random thoughts. And I'm not sure that it's entertaining. Let me know if you find it distracting, actually. I can work on other methods. Because right now, the audio is... So I have it set to recording, but it's not catching the music for some reason. It's only collecting the build mode noises, as in the placement bubble pops and everything. I'm sure you can hear them. I'm really liking the build mode on this. But I'm realizing that this system of being able to resize things and place things more freely and independently is very revolutionary, I suppose, is the right word. It's very new. Nobody else has done this sort of thing before, as far as I have heard, and because of that, there are a lot of, I suppose, kinks to work out. It's like, I don't know how much of this is a feature, not a bug, obviously, because I'm not like one of the developers on the game. But reworking the, yep, there we go. Reworking the layout begins now. Anyway, the of course, we'll find out, I suppose, in the next couple of years while the game is developed. To that end, the lack of snapping, I suppose, the lack of like a uniform snapping and connection basic, and I hate to always compare it to The Sims, but the lack of the uniformity and of the build mode, that does mean that it will likely be a little bit more challenging to make sure that everything works properly. Which, you know, if you watch Sims builds, when they do any kind of alt placement, everything breaks. Everything breaks. So many things need testing. So the aim is kind of like a tiny house situation. Somebody, like, here's the story, I suppose, that I had going on in my head while I was building this. Like, a young woman just bought a decent plot of land. She's not handy enough to build anything fancy, so she just builds a little tiny house on in between the two houses, and it's got like a lofted space for the bedroom, and the bathroom and kitchen are downstairs. It's a pretty small kitchen. She doesn't really need anything big, so one person house ideally, maybe a cat. And I cannot wait for pets. I expect it won't be anytime soon, but I am excited. This one has been I've just been so impressed with this one. Like, it's in early access. There are some issues with it still, but to be absolutely fair, The Sims has been around for a very long time, and it has so many issues still. Like, and they don't get the leeway of saying they're in early access. Like, when they released that game, it was the first Sims 4. It was so much less than this. I recall, was not impressed. Having gone from the previous iterations, like, I've been playing The Sims since The Sims 1. And The Sims 1, when it came out, was obviously going back to play it now. You're like, oh, but here's all the features in The Sims 4 that The Sims 1 doesn't have. And it's always like that going back, but my favorite to play was The Sims 2. When I liked The Sims 3 a lot. I found The Sims 2 to be better overall life sim gameplay, and the building was not as good. The building system in general has gotten so much better in the last Sims 3 and Sims 4 than it was in 1 and 2 by a lot. But the life sim element has suffered so much, I feel. Like, 2 had peak life simulation. Like, it had things that The Sims 4 still doesn't have. Not to always compare this game to The Sims. I'm sure it's happening everywhere, all over the internet, the comparisons. But I think that's mostly because this is the only other game that is the same type. Like, there are other simulation games out there, but most of them are like very targeted as far as like what you do there. This one is the only other, well, I suppose Inzoi as well, but this is a very small pool of like a particular type, the life sim. Like, you have a house, you build the house, you build your character, and you can build any character you want, and you can just live as that character in the game for a while. And it's that's what I find appealing in the cozy life sim. Like, that's what I liked out of The Sims, I suppose. This game is probably always going to be compared to The Sims, but as much as there are like bugs to work out because it is an early access and it is an indie game, I've been super impressed with like the actual, like, the building, the gameplay, the character designer, Paramaker, and everything. And The Sims has been around a long time, and they're not an indie studio, and they've had a lot of iterations that they could have pulled some inspiration from and didn't. There are so many issues still with The Sims 4. But yeah, the comparisons are pretty fair, I feel, with The Sims having... Like, The Sims has been around for a long time. If you go all the way back to The Sims 1, so long. And it's really been the only game of its type. Like, and this is, I suppose, fair to say, they kind of built the life sim genre. Like, there are other simulation games, but most of those are not life sims, you know? You know. You get me. Anyway, This one I have been so impressed with because Paralives has, like, in a lot of ways they're doing it right, I guess. They're fixing their bugs. They're hearing the community suggestions, but they're also, like, they have a vision enough to be like, this doesn't fit into our vision. This doesn't fit into what we want to make. That there were suggestions that they got that they were like, good suggestion, not applicable because that's not what we're aiming for. And I think that's absolutely the correct response. We don't want this to be a Sims clone. We want it to be its own game. We want it to be fun in its own way. For the purposes of, like, live simming genre, which this and The Sims are, and I suppose Inzoi, which I haven't played, are really the only games in town. There are 3. I think they're doing a good job. Like, this is, I have found it to be very fun to play. It hits all the right beats of, like, you can make your para and live vicariously through them. Right now, because it's an early access, there isn't really a whole lot to do yet, but I expect some of that will change. The building has been amazing. It's got a learning curve because it's very different from building in The Sims. The point is that the elements of the things that you have to test are going to be different and everything, and the freedom, I suppose, the freedom of the placement, some of this is probably skill, but some of this is also just like, I haven't figured out the grids or the sensitivity of, like, the drag on everything when you're trying to move something. But it's all just, like, it gives you a level of freedom that The Sims doesn't, and I think that that's really amazing. I think the differences, right now you get a lot of simmers who are, like, pointing out the differences in, like, a negative way. I honestly don't think they're negative. I think that they're really good. But I am going to admit, so I do watch the James Turner Let's Play with Percy. I forget the full character name, but his character Samaj and Percy, and they're extreme height difference, and the fact that they animated it in such a way as, like, a character who is very tall and a character who is very short can kiss, but the very tall one is basically going to, like, do a half crouch. It's great. It's amazing. And, like, I don't know enough about programming to know how difficult that it was to get the characters' heads to line up for the purposes of being able to do that and, like, have that somewhere in the settings. But I know enough to know that that was a thing that had to be done. Like it's a lot to think about, like, how much went into this game and how much, like, I don't know how much of this was, like, an actual person had to write all the code for this, or, like, they put together like some kind of algorithmic parameters that it's going to follow when it does this. But, like, I know enough to know that some of that exists, but I don't know enough to know how any of that works. So, like, I don't know shit about programming, but I know enough to know that it's way more difficult than you think, because you have to account for everything that you want done in some way. Like, it isn't really as basic as just, oh, you want to do this, do that thing. It's, what are all of the elements that go into doing that thing properly and animating that thing properly so that it doesn't break. And I've been really impressed with the way that they've done it and all the ways that it's different from The Sims. So, and, like, I used to really love The Sims, but recently The Sims 4 has a lot going for it, but it also has more, and it's had bugs the entire time since The Sims 1. But I feel that the Sims has had so many issues that the community has had with the bugs. For one, the game-breaking bugs. I was so angry when they had that bug that erased all of the photos, the in-game photos. And I was just like, there was nothing else you could have done. You couldn't, I don't know where you keep that in the game files, and I don't know that it necessarily would have been ideal to have every little picture that you make become essentially like a screenshot somewhere in your files. But for the people who do like generational gameplay, I'm sure that was heartbreaking. You lost all of the photos? All of them? That's insane. I do think the comparisons are fair because honestly, even with the early access element, the fact that they haven't been allowing themselves to succumb to audience capture, I suppose, they have a vision and they know what they want to do, and they take the suggestions, and the ones that are just not helpful because they're not really what they're going for, they're just, and not to be a little charitable to some of the people making those suggestions, they're just somewhere along the lines of, oh, here's a thing from The Sims that I really liked, can you add that? And I don't know necessarily that that's obviously not very helpful to the developers, because obviously it can't be a Sims clone. I personally don't want it to be a Sims clone. I know there are some Simmers out there that probably do, but it's a different game in the same genre, and in a lot of ways I think they're doing a great job. Like, the build system is very different, but in a lot of ways it gives you more freedom, and it's more realistic. And it's just like, I'm handy enough to know that I don't know enough about building to build a house, but I know enough about building to know all of the things that go into building a house. Similarly to the programming situation, I know enough to know what I don't know. I've been really impressed with the other Paralives builders, previous, some of them were also Sims builders, so I guess the other Paralives builds that I've seen where people are like working off of blueprints, like real life floor plans, that's been really fascinating to follow, and I want to do a couple. I really do. I have to. Right now I'm having a little bit of a bug where, but anyway, this is me trying to figure out what the window layout is going to be for this bathroom, because it's kind of a disaster. Because of the wall, because I decided to put that wall in the middle of the other wall, and I didn't want to have the windows cross the wall. Anyway, the layout here is a little bit crazy as far as like, I think I put down some rugs to like differentiate the space a little bit, but like, this is a person who doesn't really have a lot of space requirements. Hasn't really figured out like a uniform aesthetic that they want. They just want everything to be functional. So, excuse me. But I've been super impressed with the way that this one's handling, as far as like gameplay and building and the Paramaker. I'm so impressed with, like, I don't know enough to know how much coding went into being able to make the paras taller or shorter, but I know it was probably a lot of thought went into that. Like, I'm sure, like, there's a reason that the Sims decided all of the Sims were going to be the exact same height for the purposes of like animating everything and not having to do separate animations for all of the heights. Like, I know Paralives has talked a little bit about how they managed it, and I've been really impressed about how that's been going. Like, it's been great. As far as, like, not to overly gush about it, but I'm not looking for this to be exactly like The Sims. I'm looking for a game that hits a similar I guess vibe, so that like it can be my new like comfort cozy game. And I've been very impressed with the way that in which this is doing just that. It's I'm able to build what I want to build. I'm able to make characters that I want to make. Like, there's a lack of, I suppose, like fantasy or historical or elements, as far as like, it would be really cool if you could like build characters and houses from like books or movies or anime or stuff. I think, oh, that's an idea. I could every time. Sorry, I just I get distracted by like other things that I want to build, so that I'm not sure that this is the editing style that's going to work best for me, because while I'm rambling and like talking here on the post build, I'm finding that I get distracted from explaining what I'm doing in the build process, but I also just think about other things that I want to build, and like I would, rather than recording a voiceover for this, rather be recording or just building other things. So anyway, anyone out there, let me know if you have any tips for that. I suppose, like, I could ramble about anything, honestly. I'm not like an exceptional talker, but I am down to talk about like anything that I find interesting. And my excitement about this game has been one that I brought up repeatedly to everyone I know who also has any idea about this game's existence. The comparisons between this and The Sims, and like I've told my friends, like, they know about my love of The Sims, and I've told them that like this hits all the same vibes. It hits right in that sweet spot of like, it's brand new, you have a lot of freedom though. I'm learning a lot about editing in this process. I'm learning a lot about this game in this process. Here's me trying to figure out, though, what I want to do for like a headboard situation, because this particular bed doesn't really have one, but this wall is extremely bare without one. So I think I ended up using like a shelf. For some reason, this mailbox would not place either. I think I probably am gonna have to report a couple of things still. Like I reported a few of the bugs as I encountered them, but now that I'm going back over it all, I'm just like, oh, that was probably a bug as well that I probably should mention. Although some of that might have been because I did have mods installed at this time. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I really hope that they include a disable all button, because like I don't want to unsubscribe to all of the mods in the workshop when the game updates and then have to resubscribe to them all. I think that's kind of, they really need like a disable mods button. But anyway, I ended up using like a shelf because it's basically just a board, but it kept snapping to the wall, so I was just like, let me figure out this. And that free transform tool is amazing. It's basically, and like if you play The Sims, it's basically like the tool mod built in, which amazing. And for some reason that reminded me of the controversy of the paid mod situation, which, yeah, my take on that was good on the Paralabs community for smacking that down. In any case, let me record my closer. Have a beautiful day. I hope you enjoyed my build. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. I am new to this, so I'm learning a lot about editing, and I'm learning a lot about like what to throw in for like chatting, public speaking, and everything. So if you have any tips, please post them kindly. Give me some feedback on things you would like me to work on, as far as like, and try to be nice about it. And I don't mean like sugarcoat it. I mean like don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole on the internet. Anyway, you have a beautiful day. Please like and subscribe, and see you next time.